अस्सलाम वालेकुम। मेरा नाम अदनान गोंदल है। मेरे साथ आज हमारे गेस्ट सैयद इब्रार साहब मौजूद हैं, जो कि एक प्रोफेशनल और काफ़ी मंजे हुए पायलट हैं और इंस्ट्रक्टर भी रहे हैं, और उसके अलावा इज गॉट अ लॉट ऑफ लाइफ एक्सपीरियंस टू ऑफर। हमारे साथ जरियाब मौजूद हैं, जो कि एक स्टूडेंट हैं और ऑल्सो हमारे कोर्स होते हैं। Anyways, Abrar sahab, assalamu alaikum and welcome to the mentoring session 3.
वालेकुम सलाम।
सर, कहते हैं हम लोग छोटे हैं, ज्यादा सवाल नहीं पूछ सकते, लेकिन फिर भी हिम्मत करेंगे कि आपसे कुछ सवाल पूछ लें। पहले तो आप अपना ब्रीफ इंट्रोडक्शन हमें दे दें, ताकि सुनने वालों को एक आपकी समझ आ जाए कि ये आपके लाइफ एक्सपीरियंस है, दिस यू हैव बीन डूइंग, सो वो आसानी से सवाल कर सके, क्योंकि कुछ सवाल अभी हमारे पास हैं, कुछ सवाल आगे बाद में भी आ सकते हैं। तो हम लोगों ने एक ईमेल एड्रेस जो है वो बनाया है इसके लिए, जो कि नीचे डिस्क्रिप्शन के अंदर मौजूद होगा। आप उसके अंदर आराम से अपने सवाल भेज सकते हैं। आप किसी भी मेंटोर के साथ जो पहले किसी भी सेशन के अंदर शामिल हुए हैं, इब्रार साहब के साथ, सैयद फारूक साहब के साथ, मेरे साथ और आने वाले गेस्ट के साथ, उनसे भी सवाल पूछ सकते हैं। तो इब्रार साहब, ओवर टू यू प्लीज।
Thank you very much, first of all, for inviting me to such a session. Others may think that I'm here to teach. I'm here to learn, because I always learn. When I was a flying instructor about 30 years back, I used to tell my students one thing, that learning is life. You do not die when you stop breathing. You die when you stop learning. When you have nothing to learn, that is the time the death occurs. So I thank you once again for granting me this opportunity to interact with people like you and people who would be listening to our discussion or our intercourse. My name is Syed Abrar Hussain, and I had led a very eventful life. I'm not sure whether I am a good example of a mentor or in a position to really guide people into a particular field. But nevertheless, I have life experiences and I have inspirations to share with all of you. I come from a very humble background, and I had a good schooling. And then after my high school, I joined Pakistan Air Force for training as a GDP. I went to PF College Sargodha in February 1978. To be honest with you, only one sentence of English that I could speak in those days was, "My name is Abrar." That is all, one sentence that I could really speak. And when I went to PF College Sargodha, and everything was in English, halls, academics, as well as we were not allowed to speak in any other language. And it was like being dumb. But nevertheless, one learns. Human beings are adaptable, and I learned. So I was there for 3 years in Air Force. And as an experiment in those days, Pakistan Air Force tried something, and it was, let me tell you a little bit of background. Before our time, boys used to join after high school. They used to study 4 years in PF College Sargodha, complete their graduation with engineering degree, and after that they used to go to Risalpur for flying training. But in our time, they started a new experiment that instead of waiting for 4 years, they would test people if they had flying aptitude after 1.5 years. So our course was the first course, and they gave us initial flying training. and they were testing our aptitude for fighter flying. And after flying about 10 hours, they used to write a report that this boy is suitable to become a pilot or otherwise. So my instructor did not find me suitable to become a pilot. And he wrote that this boy has slow pickup, his learning abilities are slow, so he cannot become a fighter pilot. And they offered me to be, the organization offered me to become an aeronautical engineer. But I refused. I did not, I did not think that I was ready to become an aeronautical engineer for a number of reasons. So the only option was I could leave Pakistan Air Force. So they said, you will have to leave Pakistan Air Force. I said, okay, if you can forward my application to Pakistan Army and maybe they will accept me. So they forwarded my application to Pakistan Army and I left. I will cut the story short because if I start talking about these things, it will be a very long story. So I joined, I did my ASSB again, passed through the medical examination, and I joined Pakistan Military Academy in 1980. And I completed my 2 years of military training and I passed out. After passing out, I joined the logistic branch of Pakistan Army and I served there for about 3 years. Then in those days, they were picking up aviation pilots from Army. And I also applied. And I told them that I had about 10 hours of flying and I was not considered suitable for flying duties. So they say, we will test you. They tested me. And in the 5th hour, I was comfortably flying the aircraft and landing it. And my instructor told me, I don't know who was the man who thought that you're not suitable to be a pilot. I completed my 1 year training, completed 200 hours of flying, and I scored 5th position in my course, and I became a military pilot. After becoming a military pilot, you had two choices. You could become a helicopter pilot or you could become a flying instructor. So I decided to become a flying instructor. And I went back to Pakistan Air Force because to become a flying instructor, you have to go back to Baku. I completed my instructor training and came back to Army Aviation School as an instructor. As an instructor, I served for a very long time. I was among those instructors who served for a very long time, longer duration. And I used to teach aerodynamics to the students. Then I converted onto helicopters. And I started to fly Alouette and Lama helicopters, which are French helicopters, and they were used for flying in the northern areas where you have a border with India and you are fighting a war with on Siachen Glacier. That was the area where I used to fly my helicopter. Those areas are very demanding, very challenging, and there are a number of accidents that keep taking place. In 1994, I was flying my helicopter in the northern areas, very high mountains, and my helicopter crashed. My helicopter crashed. I came down from 15,000 feet and my helicopter was completely smashed. I was there with my co-pilot and a crew chief and a passenger. I did the emergency procedures, whatever was in my hand. As a result, nobody died. I survived, my co-pilot survived, and everybody survived. But I had a number of fractures. I broke 11 bones of my body. And I was in the hospital for 1 year. And I thought, when the helicopter was falling down, I thought I will not survive. When I opened my eyes and I was being evacuated from the crash site to the hospital in Skadu, I thought I survived, but I think I will never stand on my legs. Then I stood on my legs and I thought I can walk, but I will not fly again. But to share with you, not only that I survived, I walked, I flew again. And I started to fly again.
So this is definitely a story of courage and also what I keep saying to everybody, that failures don't stop you. They only make you better than before. Failures do not stop you.
They say
And
whatever doesn't kill you makes you stronger.
yeah, that too. Okay. That
Okay.
was a great introduction, and a really blessed to have you. Thankfully, you have survived and survived to tell the story, and help a lot of other pilots to sort of like continue the journey of aviation, aerodynamics, and flying. Um, so, conscious of time, I'm gonna take my first question here. And since you were an instructor, probably this would be slightly technical question coming from my end, and then Zaryab can start asking questions like about aspirations and how to join Army Aviation, and probably a few of those questions will come from me as well. Somebody asked me, what are the main controls of helicopter?
Okay. Good. But before I answer this question, I will just add a few sentences to my introduction. I retired from the Army Aviation as a Lieutenant Colonel, and I was offered a position with United Nations. And I became part of the United Nations peacekeeping effort, and it took me to many corners of the world. I was in Central Africa, Chad, then I went to East Timor, which is between Australia and Indonesia. Then from there, I went back to Africa and I was in Sudan. Then I left for South America and I was working in Haiti, which is Latin America. Then I returned back to Africa and presently I'm in Western Sahara.
You've been to
So
most of
coming back to,
you've been to the most of the beautiful countries in the world, really, because these places are really beautiful.
true.
These are
Beautiful,
these,
beautiful, beautiful.
actually looking at the few of the pictures as well. I can tell those, especially you mentioned Africa. Africa is beautiful, Haiti, and all that.
Beautiful.
I've only been to Egypt in Africa. I have not really been to much of Africa. So yeah, that's one of the continents I have not explored, to be honest. Well, now you are placed in Morocco.
Actually, I'm in Morocco, but it is a disputed territory between Morocco and Western Sahara.
Okay, okay, that's good. That's good. So I forgot to mention to you guys in this as well. Now our host is actually effectively working with United Nations at the moment as well, right?
Yes, I
Yeah,
am.
that is true. And he's also helping other pilots, and also helping United Nations at the same time. Are you still instructing, or you're not part of instructor group anymore?
Not an instructor. I'm not in the capacity of instructor. I became a specialist in aviation safety. So in Western Sahara, there's a United Nations peacekeeping mission. This
Okay.
mission has helicopters and aircraft. I try to create procedures and systems to make sure that there are no accidents.
So, mashallah, that's most of the introduction done. Well, let's go back to the question which was asked, which is, what are the main controls of the helicopter? I
Okay.
think he's talking about the three main controls, basically. As you
Yes,
are
I
an
will talk
expert.
about three main controls.
Yeah.
Okay. The helicopter draws its all strength, aerodynamic strength from the rotor.
Yeah.
3 or 4 rotors of a helicopter, when they start rotating, they become a disc. If you have your ceiling fan, when it stops, you can see 3 wings. But when they start rotating, you only see a disc.
Yeah.
Helicopter also has a disc like this, and everything that helicopter does is done with this disc. When you change the angle of all 3 discs collectively, So helicopter can move up and down. When you move the angle of the disc in such a way that it changes in the front and it increases at the back, in the back side, then the helicopter moves forward and back. Let me show you with my hand. When you want, this is a disc, let's say, and when it moves like this, you go up, it goes down, up and down. But at the same time, you can move the disc like this, it goes forward and back. In the cockpit, the helicopter pilot have a cyclic in their hand. When they move it forward and back, the disc moves like this. This is known as cyclic. On the other side, they have a collective. It also controls the same disc, but it can move the helicopter up and down. So with the collective, you move the helicopter up and down. With the cyclic control, you move the helicopter front, back, right, and left. At the back, you have a tail rotor. The tail rotor lets the helicopter move like this. There are three movements of any aircraft in three axes. So you can pitch up and pitch down. You can roll right and roll left, or you can yaw right and yaw left. So there are three dimensions of any aircraft. So with the cyclic, you move the helicopter up and down. Collective, you move the helicopter up and down. With the cyclic, you move it forward and back, or right and left. And with the tail rotor movement, which is pedal, you can move the helicopter, tail rotor, like this, which is known as yawing. So these are the three controls of a helicopter.
Sorry about this, guys. I had an emergency call. I had to take it. I had to take the emergency call. Sorry, I'm not usually like that.
No problem.
Okay, so the sub question was that when you have a cyclic in your hand and also you have a collector, have you had experience of flying helicopters where they have both built in the same thing, right?
No, I did not have, but now the such helicopters have been developed, in which instead of the instrument panel, it has become a glass cockpit, and all the instrument panels are for example, the old time, the conventional cockpit display, you have one altimeter, it's a dial showing the altimeter, another dial showing you the vertical velocity, another dial showing you the RPM. So it is being replaced with the digital instruments, and they call it a glass cockpit. With the modernization of helicopter and flying machines, the conventional cockpit is being also modernized. And I think now they have, I did not have an experience to fly such a helicopter, but I think now they have control where collective as well as cyclic control are combined into one control. It is becoming more like video games.
Yeah. Okay. Good for people like me who do not really think that they will be able to handle pedal and collective and cyclic at the same time. But somebody asked us this question here, that is it possible to fly or no, the question was, does helicopter have ability to fly by wire?
So far, no. We have the aircraft being flown remotely, and it is extensively used. As a matter of fact, the drones, or the called RPAs, remotely piloted aircraft, is taking over most of the airspace. And in many United Nations missions also, in side by side with the flying units, we have drone units working, and these drones comes in every size and shape. The smallest drone that I know is of size of a mosquito, and the bigger drones are as big as a small aircraft. So they are there, but helicopters, no, not helicopters, no.
Okay.
Let me tell you one sentence about aircraft and helicopter. One sentence.
Sure.
They say learning of aircraft is difficult, but becoming master of an aircraft is not so difficult. On the other hand, helicopters, in the learning, it may be easy, but mastery is very difficult because helicopter by design is unstable. Unstable machine, it's an unstable machine, and it is the pilots who add stability to it. On the other hand, the aircraft is by design a stable thing.
Okay. Okay. I think what the person who asked this question wants to know, I think that by wire, the terminology might not be example of flying remotely, but flying in some autopilot mode. For instance, having some sort of stability. Let's say when you are hovering over something and you want to put it in an autopilot, and then the pilot can let go controls. That scenario, I think he's talking about.
That kind of things are coming up now. That kind of things are coming up. There are facilities with the modern helicopter which help you a lot and make the helicopter more stable.
Okay. Zaryab, do you have any questions about aspirations and how to join, I mean, military academies, Air Force academies, and private schools, if you have any questions regarding that, because I do, but I'll give you a chance.
Of course, thank you. My question is that, like, for example, what age is suitable for a boy or someone or girl, whoever wants to join the Pakistan Air Force or Pakistan Army, and how do they apply for that? I hope my question is precise enough.
To be honest with you, I can only give you a broad answer because I joined Pakistan Military Academy in 1980, which is how old? 80 to about 40 years back.
Before my birth. So you are not
but
even.
I can tell you at the same time.
Yep.
I will I will tell you a little bit. I said I can give you a broad answer. There was a time when the military and Air Force and Navy were taking students after high school. But now they have all standardized and they also only accept boys and girls after their FSC.
Yeah.
After FSC.
Yeah,
so that is the time, and I think age is 17 to 19 or 20 maybe, and you have to register online.
I think
they
it's
give
about
the advertisement and people register online.
Between 20, 21, 22-ish. I don't know. 22 is the last age kind of thing. I believe so.
There are exceptions for people. For example, if you are already in the military as an officer, they give you a age relaxation. For example, there is a soldier who wants to become an officer, so they give him some relaxation in the age. So that is the kind of age and qualification. You register online. These things are available online now. It is much more easier.
Okay, somebody asked this question.
I do have another question, if you allow me.
You can, yeah, you can go ask. That's no problem. But there was a relative question.
Okay.
There was a relative question here that are there any private schools of not aeroplane flying? Is talking about Pacific helicopter. Are there any specific good schools where I can enroll for to become a helicopter pilot in Pakistan?
No. So far there is no school for helicopter flying for a number of reasons. Number one, helicopter flying is very expensive. If I remember in old times when we were doing our flying, 1 hour of fixed wing flying used to cost 4,000 rupees and now it has gone up to 20,000 rupees. Helicopter flying is maybe 4 times more expensive. And helicopter flying, after completing 200 hours of flying on helicopter, is very costly. So not many people can afford. But there are flying schools in United States and other countries, maybe in UK also, where you can learn helicopter flying. But in Pakistan, no.
I did. I want to add to that. I did ask someone. Like I did call a school, like a military school, like an aircraft school or whatever you call it.
Sorry, I didn't understand.
I want to add a little bit to it. You were talking about the expensive courses, aircraft courses. So I did call someone for like a friend or acquaintance, you can say, and around like it was around 35 lakh to 40 lakh per course. So yeah, it is pretty expensive.
If I understand correctly, your voice in the beginning was very low, but I think you are asking that if the money is not a problem, then can you learn helicopter flying? Is that the question?
He was adding to it. I think he was adding to it, saying that he had a query and he found out that it was really expensive, for like 35-40 lakh rupees. So, Zaryab, you having any technical issues, because we are unable to hear you?
I don't think so. My internet is quite stable.
Okay, sounds all right. So, crack on with your question now, please. Sorry to interrupt you, because I didn't want it to be two different sections. I wanted that question to be in that section.
Yep, you phrased it correctly. I wanted to say like that. I wanted to add to it. Furthermore, Rauf, if you want to add, can be welcome.
Start recording this session. This session is getting recorded now. Okay, the question, sorry, I had to repeat the question, that someone's already working as a pilot and he wants to find out what type of money he's looking at if he works in private sector in Pakistan and abroad.
Yes, in Pakistan, I think you're looking at a salary of 3 to 4 lakh per month.
Okay.
3 to 4 lakh per month. It depends upon the package. Now there are a number of organizations which are having helicopters, like Bahria Town, Mansha Group. They have their fixing as well as sometimes they have helicopters, and they offer this kind of salary. And but these places are mostly occupied by you are competing with the military pilots who are retiring every year, and they are available. So you have to compete with them. They come with 4,000 hours, 5,000 hours of helicopter flying, and but nevertheless, the sky is the limit. Anybody can try. So this is the kind of money that you get. Abroad, aviation industry is funny from one point of view. It comes in fluxes. At times there's a time when we don't have pilots, and there's a shortage of pilots, and suddenly every Tom, Dick and Harry with one leg and one eye who has some flying experience can find a job. And when all the jobs are filled for another 5-7 years, even if you are smart and healthy and everything, you don't find a job. Till that time, the one breed of pilots fades away, and then there's suddenly a shortage of pilots.
Okay. Yeah.
Finding a job abroad, especially.
I agree to that, but thankfully I will never have to look for a job in aviation industry. Although I do have a PPL, but I'll move on to the next question, which was, what are 3 basic flight conditions?
flight conditions?
Yeah.
I mean, if you are asking from visual flying or instrument flying, that kind of conditions?
I think you already explained. Okay, welcome back, Zaryab, for joining.
I'm
And
really sorry.
I
I had
think
some technical
you
problem.
have some session recorded, but I will have some session recorded. There's gonna be a bit of challenge for you to merge both of them, but
I'll merge it.
I'll let you handle the technical stuff. Anyways, for flight conditions, I think what he's probably trying to say is the condition of flight, and you know, you already explained with your hand how the helicopter moves. So
no, I think the person who is asking this question is asking from there can be visual flying conditions and you can have instrument flying conditions. Now, most of the military flying is done with the visual flying conditions, and most of the commercial flying is all instrument flying conditions. In the instrument flying condition, the pilots is not dependent on cues from outside. It doesn't look outside the window and fly. They look at their instrument and they fly. They only look out to land the aircraft or take off. But otherwise, they are all doing their flying looking at the instruments. And that's why people who are flying on the instrument flying condition, they can fly at night, they can fly in bad visibility, they can fly in clouds, because they're not dependent on the visual signals. So these are the two flying conditions which you have, visual flying conditions and instrument flying conditions.
yeah.
And the instrument flying conditions is the majority of flying which is conducted in the worldwide international is instrument flying conditions.
True, I agree. But I think what he's talking about is the three flying condition, which is hovering, vertical, and forward flying, which you explained with your hands.
I see.
I think
especially.
So he wants to probably know the use and why do we use the router on the backside, and what is the use of it, and how the size have an impact on it. That if you have a big one or if you have a small one, how does that impact the helicopter?
Okay. I tell you very interesting. Let's suppose the helicopter rotors are moving clockwise.
Yeah.
If the helicopter disc is moving clockwise, the body of the helicopter would like to move anti-clockwise.
Okay. Yeah.
As a reaction. It is only the tail rotor which is stopping the body not to rotate in the anti-clockwise position.
Yes.
So exactly. It is only the tail rotor that stops the helicopter from moving in the opposite direction to the rotors. That's why one of the most serious emergency of helicopter flying is the failure of tail rotor. When the tail rotor fails, the helicopter starts rotating in the opposite direction. And that's a very big challenge. So the role of the tail rotor is to stop the helicopter from moving into that direction, number one. Number two, whenever the helicopter, most of the helicopters, when they move up and down, they also create an impact of the helicopter nose moving right or left. That means it starts to yaw. To control that, again, you have to use the tail rotor.
Yeah. Okay.
I remember when I used to fly Lama helicopter, whenever you give the collective, you have to use the pedal to control, because if you use the collective and do not have any input on the tail rotor, then the aircraft always yaws. There are complex aerodynamic forces which are created.
I always keep on saying to everybody that fixed plane, fixed wings is always much easier. Although you have, but having three controls all the time, making sure that you are in control is a much difficult thing. So the next question which is coming it's very relevant to your personal experience, which is, do helicopters have better survival chances than aeroplanes?
No, no. For example, in most of the aircraft, you can you can jump out. But helicopters, if the helicopter is falling down, you go with the helicopter because you cannot come out. There's no provision of jumping out. Because let's suppose the helicopter is falling down. If you go out, the rotor disc is very big. You will go out and you go into the rotor disc because it is falling down. तो वो उर्दू में कहते हैं कि गिरते हेलीकॉप्टर के साथ नीचे आके बोटी करवानी है या बाहर जाके कीमा बनवाना है. So you have these two choices. So and moreover, the helicopter emergencies are very critical. Helicopter by design are unstable machines, and the emergencies are also very complicated. By design, the fixed-wing aircraft has an ability to glide. If the engine fails, the aircraft will glide for some time. It will give you a warning and it will glide. But helicopter falling down, since I have the experience of both kind of emergencies, I have emergencies of the aircraft as well as I landed at one time with 4-cylinder engine of my aircraft. One cylinder had bursted. It completely was zero. And 3 cylinders were partially working and I was able to land. But the helicopter flying, when the helicopter emergency took place, I tell you, the things in a helicopter emergency, they happen so fast. The things were happening so quickly that what to talk of remembering your whole life, there was no time even to panic. You do not have even time to panic if things happen so fast.
Okay.
Survival chances in helicopter emergencies is less than the fixed wing.
Okay. So we have taken out that misconception as well, that survival in helicopter may be more. Anyways, Zaryab, we had a twin of you in this meeting, so I don't know how
Yes.
You want to ask the question?
Yes, my Zoom crashed unfortunately, so I have to rejoin it. I don't know why. So yeah, I want to ask a question about the aerodynamics. How do you define aerodynamics?
Aerodynamics is the subject which has consists of two words, aero and dynamics. So it is like hydrodynamics and it is like aerodynamics means it is the study of the aerodynamic forces that make the aircraft fly. Why does an aircraft fly? Number one. Number two, why certain aircraft and helicopters are shaped into different things. For example, if you look at an airliner, you find big wings. And when you look at the fighter pilots, fighter aircraft, you find that their wings are smaller and they are normally sweep back wings. All these things are part of aerodynamics. And unless a pilot understands the aerodynamics, he would never understand the complete science of why does an aircraft fly.
Thank you.
Okay. This is question from me because I'm obviously this question. So you had an experience of Llama helicopter. I remember reading about Llama helicopter probably in my school time. There was a story of a pilot called Segil.
Yes.
Yeah. So
I had the honor to work with him. We were together. He is senior to us. He got his Satara Jura. And the other pilot with him was Zia, another good friend of mine. He was also about 6 months senior to me, a very darling person. Unfortunately, before he became a full colonel, he died in a helicopter crash with the United Nations. He was in the Sierra Leone where the helicopter crashed. He was not flying it. All his life he was flying the helicopter, but he was traveling in an helicopter when the helicopter crashed in Sierra Leone and died.
Oh.
The Lama helicopter, and that story that you read in your textbook is from, I take pride because it is a story from my squadron. It was 8 Aviation Squadron, which has got a number of Sitara Jorat and number of other military honors, because when the Siachen conflict started, this was the squadron which was flying initially the Elbit helicopter, and then it converted on to Lama helicopter, and now they have replaced Lamas with Finnic helicopters.
So that story.
Oh yes.
So you guys actually taken off the gates and everything to make it lighter, and managed to take 2 fighters over a cliff, which was literally impossible task.
Almost impossible.
So why Lama? I mean, what is so special about Lama that it is such a good helicopter for mountains, glaciers?
Okay, I tell you, I will try to answer this question. You know, the Zaryab asked a question about the aerodynamics.
Yeah, exactly.
Every aircraft, every helicopter is basically designed for a particular purpose. For example, you look at C-130 with big wings and 4 engines. It is more stable aircraft. It has got a purpose. The people were designing this aircraft were thinking about more payload. You want to carry more load, but you don't want to have maneuvers. You don't want to do maneuvers in the air. You just want to take more load and fly for longer durations. But if you look at F-16, it has got small wings. It has got a limited flying time. But look at the wings which are sweep back. So I will just add one word. There's a concept of flying which is known as how an aircraft is more stable. Okay, stability is something good, but when you add stability, you compromise on maneuverability. So to make an helicopter or aircraft more maneuverable, you have to reduce the stability. So C-130 is more stable, so it is less maneuverable. F-16 is more maneuverable, so it is basically unstable. Likewise, you have helicopters like you see the Vietnam movies, you find the Bell helicopters, which is UH-1H with big 2 rotors, and they're making a very peculiar noise. And these helicopters are good for the field, flying at the low altitude. But as the altitude increases, the density of the air reduces. For example, at sea level, when the rotor disk makes one circle, let's suppose it is cutting the density of air, let's say 10 cubic feet of air, and it is throwing it down, creating an impact. As you go high, making the same circle, you do not have that mass of air available. So as you go high, the density of the air reduces, and the efficiency of the rotor also reduces. The tail rotor is affected more severely. If you take this UH-1H helicopter or the Bell helicopter to higher altitude, the tail rotor efficiency would almost finish. The helicopter would rotate and the pilot would not be able to stop it. Lama helicopter by design is made for those altitudes, and it can handle low density air. I tell you, we used to land on a military post which is called Convoy Saddle. This military post is the highest military post in the whole world, and this is the coldest military post in the whole world. I will tell you, there's a concept of going around. Let's suppose an aircraft making an approach on an airport. There is some problem. They find that I cannot land, and there's some problem on the airport also. The runway is not clear. So it can add power and go around. So this option is always there with the pilot. But on convoy saddle, there is no option. If you make a good approach, you land. If you do not make a good approach, you crash. Because the density of the air is so thin, in the density altitude in the summertime, it becomes 26,000 feet. 26,000 feet. You are on the oxygen, and the helicopter has working on its last limits of air density. So that is why the Llama helicopter was so useful at that altitude. But when they replaced it with Finnick helicopter, it was even more efficient.
Yeah. Okay. So there are few other questions. Probably I don't really want you to answer. There's a very simple question: what is the biggest helicopter in the world? I don't know. I think it's Chinook. Which one is it?
I think so. Chinook is more versatile because it has got two rotor discs working in opposite direction. I have seen Chinooks when there was an earthquake in Pakistan, and I was in charge of the Muzaffarabad Air Base. We used to work with Chinook. But I think the biggest helicopter should be a Russian helicopter, Mi-26.
Mi-26. Okay. Yeah, I was thinking between those two. I wasn't 100% sure.
It's almost like a flying C-130.
Flying
C-130. So do you control?
Yes, very big.
Sure. So only one person can control a helicopter, or 2 or 3 can also control a helicopter?
Sorry?
It's talking about how many people can control the helicopter. Is it one person who controls the helicopter, or 2, 3 people can control?
No. Bigger helicopter, they usually have 2 pilots. So one pilot is flying at one time, but you have 2 pilots and they've got their duties. One person does not take care of everything. So and at the same time, you're all the time training the other pilot to become captain of the aircraft. So there are 2 pilots.
Okay.
What's the highest, since we was talking about air getting thinner and everything, what is the highest ever recorded for a helicopter to fly?
I don't know. At present, I don't know.
What do you think roughly what's the highest sort of like?
I think it should not be more than, I don't know, anybody would have crossed 30,000 feet. But I'll tell you, I can take pride in my helicopter pilots. One helicopter pilot, I will tell you a very interesting story if you allow me for 2 minutes.
Sure.
Yes, there was an expedition in our northern areas, and the expedition, I think, came from Belgium. And they went to Rakaposhi, probably, and one guy was there. He was broken leg, and he could not. There was no way we could bring him back. In those days, we did not have Llama helicopter, so the Elbit helicopter was used. But the Elbit helicopter at that altitude, where the mountaineer was lying, it could not hover. And without hovering, how could it take the men out of that place? So there was one pilot, he said, let me try something. So what he did, he said, I will fly solo. I will not take the other pilot, so I will reduce my weight. I will take limited fuel, so I will become lighter. So he was alone. He removed both the doors by reducing weight, and he reduced the weight of the fuel also. He went to that altitude and hovered and brought that Belgium mountaineer back. When he landed back, he was asked, why did you break the rule? You were not supposed to do it. And he was given a warning. He was given a warning, why did you do it? A recorded warning. But after about 2 months, the Belgian government sent the highest military medal to this pilot. They say, we want to give you this medal, and you and your family, you have an honorary citizenship of Belgium. Now, it came to the government of Pakistan and went to GHQ, and finally he was told, we are taking the warning back and you will be given an award. And similar thing was repeated. Two of my students, I really take pride of being their instructor for some time, Rashidullah Beg and Khalid Amir Rana. They repeated this thing again and they rescued some people from, I think, Ireland or Finland. And they become international celebrities. They did the same thing. They went to that spot which was not possible. They hovered, they took out that man, and then they were given the military awards of Finland, and they were celebrated. Every forum where the flying people are going, pilots and flying, they were invited. The people wrote stories about them in the Reader Digest and everything. So that kind of thing also takes place.
Okay, the sub question for this is also what is the fastest speed a helicopter can fly on? Roughly. Again, roughly.
Sorry?
What is the fastest speed a helicopter can fly on?
Okay, helicopters have a limitation. Helicopters have a limitation. They cannot cross a particular speed because of the reasons of their aerodynamics. The fixed wing aircraft can cross supersonic, but I think helicopters cannot exceed, I think so, maybe 200 knots or something. They cannot. They cannot. After that, they will not be able to use their rotors effectively.
Yeah, I understand that. Okay. By the way, helicopter pilots all over the world are doing incredible job, as mentioned by Syed Saab previously, that they are doing search and rescue missions all over the world. They are also helping people in road accidents and disasters. So no planes are, well, right now, no planes are able to help people the way helicopters can. Even police is using it extensively for search operations, for chase operations, and even to bust drugs. Flying over buildings, flying over and scanning buildings, and people running on foot and cars, chasing them, and also a lot of rescue sort of like operations. I will say the helicopter pilots, if you are a helicopter pilot, you're not going to be jobless. It is one of the things, guys, you really need to know. The helicopter pilots are not going to be jobless because there is a lot of demand all over the world, and because of the growing needs of mankind, how we need those pilots. And in next 30 years, even, I do not see helicopters being replaced by drones. Especially, I don't see that kind of ability will be provided where hospitals, police, and everyone will start replacing helicopters. But eventually, it is going to happen. But right now, for the next gen of pilots, I think you are pretty much safe if you wanna do your training as somebody who wants to sort of like fly commercially. Joyriders are always welcome. There's nothing stopping you. Is there any specific school you would like to recommend in Pakistan or internationally? Since you have already said there is no good school for helicopter pilots, but internationally, for if someone wants to join as a joyrider or a commercial pilot, what school do you recommend? Is there any school which you have caught your eyes and you think, you know what, I really want to recommend these guys are doing an incredible job?
For helicopter training?
Yeah.
No, I cannot. I cannot tell any schools at present because I told you, I stopped flying helicopters 13 years back, and after that I'm working with United Nations, and I never had to go to a helicopter training school because it was the military who trained me to be a helicopter pilot. But I think the young people who are asking these questions, they are very familiar with, they are very well conversant with the Google. You Google and you will find number of school list of all the schools coming up. And I think there are very good schools in America. But you will be surprised, many people from abroad, from many countries of European countries, they come for two reasons to Pakistan. One is for their dental needs because the dental treatment is very expensive in the Western world. And number two is the basic flying. Basic flying is also very expensive in the West. So basic flying is also available on cheaper rates in Pakistan, and the dental treatment is also very cheap and economical in Pakistan.
Let
But
me add,
helicopter,
let me add to
please.
this fixed wing in United Kingdom. To become a commercial pilot, you might have to spend £90,000, which is around 2 crore. And if you want to learn it in Pakistan, I don't know how much it is. How much it is, sir?
It should be, when my daughter completed her flying, it should something like 35 lakh rupees.
Yes. So we are only talking about a fraction of money.
Yes.
So we are talking about something which is 6 times cheaper.
But I will give you one advice to these people. Anybody who wants to become a helicopter pilot, if he already has a flying lessons with a fixed wing, he is already a pilot, it becomes very easy to convert onto helicopter. So you're already a pilot. So you're only converting onto another type of machine. But if you want to start your flying with helicopter, it would be very expensive and difficult.
Yeah, it is true. Although I am not going to sort of like ever try flying a helicopter. I just simply don't see myself on a helicopter. I don't know why. Probably, I think some people have.
You're probably afraid of heights.
No, it's not. It's not. I was born to fly. I'm never afraid of. I've got PPL, as Sayyid Saab already know. But converting onto helicopter, I don't know. I'm not a good multitasker, so I don't know if I would be the suitable candidate for that. But thank you so much for joining today. We have overrun 5 minutes, but obviously we can always fix up this. Because we had some technical issues. Guys, if you have any questions, we really thank Sayyid Saab for joining today, but if you have any questions, shoot and feel free to ask all those questions. I think Zaryab would like to tell you what's the email, and it's also in the description. What is the email, Zaryab?
The email is fopqma@gmail.com. Where you can email your questions and inshallah we'll be able to answer them.
So FOP
and you can find it in the description. Yep.
Gondal Saab, I wish you had devoted some time to my humble school that I am running in Pakistan for the poor people.
Inshallah, we'll have a chat about it after this session. Definitely, I'll give you a call.
Okay.
And thank you so much for joining today. And hopefully very soon we will get in touch. Zaryab, thank you so much for joining as well.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. It has been an honor. It's been a pleasure.
Same here, sir.